Hello, everyone. I'm not used to doing a video verdict here in my house, but there we are. It's my premiere. It's my on the ball podcast setup, obviously. But here I am. Welcome. I will do a bit of live reaction to the game from the comfort of my own home. There is a reason for this. The reason for this being that Sundays are quite busy. I don't get very much time to write a piece, and actually ended up writing 2 today. So it was literally let me get those written, get it all done, and then I'll do the videos now. And I thought, well, in fact, I wasn't actually going to bother doing the videos. Let's be honest. There's no hot takes to be bothered to do those. That's consistency, isn't it? And it was like, wow, this was the score. So does anyone care? But then I was sat here and I thought, we've all done, so I would just do it here. So I have been at Carrow Road for the game. I'm just in my study work space now, and my children are in bed. Not sure if they're asleep, but there we go. So obviously one of the benefits of doing this live is that you can message me if you want, and we can have a very quick chat. But this isn't going to take long because it wasn't very good, was it? Let's be honest. Norwich lost 1-0. As you will have known and seen, I'm sure, as it was on Sky this lunchtime at home to Sunderland. Quite interesting for me was that I found myself having conversations over the course of this week, and having watched Norwich play, and obviously I've seen how they did at Millwall. There's lots of elements where you're like, this could be a turning point, or, this could be it finally clicking under David Wagner, and things look a bit more settled, and they've got a real structure to build off, and this is good, and which is great. But I could never totally commit to that line, because I've just found that team so unreliable this whole season, whoever's head coach, and I think today was probably the reason why, in terms of consistency of performance and what they're capable of doing and how they go about it. There are too many inconsistencies, too many constant question marks. And how one of the pieces I've written is about their mentality and reliability, and the idea that whilst you've got the saying never too high or too low from the results is there, and you get that over the course of dealing with it through a week. Actually, the ability to deal with a match in its situation of the 90 minutes, Norwich can't do it. They seem to unravel at certain times, and they went behind after 50 minutes to Abdoullah Ba's goal, which was a good strike. I look at it, and I actually asked Angus Gunn this. For some reason, his positioning wasn't right. He's far too over to his near post, and he actually takes a step towards his near post before then diving back across. And it just left the whole side of the goal open. So he said he was going to look back at it and analyze it, because obviously in real time it's really hard to know what you're doing. But to me, he was obviously wasn't set and was trying to adjust his position, and that meant that he just left too much room for the goal. I did personally think it was a goalkeeping error in part, but there was also the fact that Grant Hanley didn't engage with Ba, and he's literally in front of him, and did nothing really effective to stop the shot. And Norwich kind of got done by some very cute passing, but it was all too easy. And Sunderland were actually very good at this all game, I thought. So obviously they lost 5-1 at home to Alec Neil's Stoke, their former manager, all very apt and what have you, and funny. But their reaction to that today was excellent. I thought Sunderland were really good. I looked at the table before the game, obviously, and looked at them, how much they dropped away. They had to win today, really, to even stay in touch remotely with the playoff pack. And so I was like, let's see what they've got, but I'm not sure what they've got. I thought they were excellent. I thought they got the ball forward and then they dug in. I don't think I've seen a smaller championship team in a very long time. They all seemed like really small 21-year-olds, which they're not. It's just sort of the makeup of the team, certainly apart from obviously Danny Bath and maybe some of the players at the back and what have you. But certainly in terms of across the team, they all seem much of a muchness in terms of size and stature. Maybe they all just look like Patrick Roberts. But they were really good at vertical breaking through Norwich's lines and exposing some of the gaps Norwich had in the first half. And then they were compact and resolute. And to be honest, pretty comfortable at making sure Norwich didn't really create any chances like the ones they would like to. Thought they defended really well. And in the same way that I had reservations about, Norwich did do really well at Millwall. Obviously, I'm not going to rewrite history. They did. It was a brilliant result. But a lot of that I felt came from Millwall, reacting badly actually to Norwich's equaliser, and also just losing their way and running out of steam, and energy seemed to be a real issue with that. I also think the fact that Norwich struggled to create so much today did have a lot to do with how well Tony Mowbray had Sunderland set up and how well his players carried those instructions out. So credit where it's due for them as well. I wasn't happy with the goal. I thought Norwich's reaction then from after that goal to the half time was they were all over the place. All over the place. They just didn't seem to be able to deal with the situation, which is kind of what I was suggesting earlier. We had Ben Gibson play a goal kick out of play, which is kind of inexplicable. Joe Gelhardt had a brilliant chance to make it 2-0 just after the goal and probably should have scored. It was a decent save by Angus Gunn, but he literally just hit it straight at him. And there was just a lack of composure in certain moments from Norwich. That it was just, the thing is, they've done this all season. It hasn't really mattered who the head coach is. They've just done it where they've been affected by these moments, and they haven't been able to sort themselves out. I don't think that is not effort. Obviously, it's not really quality. It's in some respects, maybe gets looked at a bit like leadership, I suppose. That there was no one really pulling them together, and obviously Norwich have relied on Gabby Sarah kind of just stepping up and really driving Norwich forward in the last few games. And today that wasn't there, but you can't constantly expect it of him, and others have to step up as well. And yeah, I mean, if ultimately Norwich just didn't really create anything, and that was a massive issue. They had 5 shots on target, apparently. I think I would do well to tell you what any of those were. And yeah, so it was a bit of a struggle. And there are players who haven't scored for a while at Carrow Road. There are players who are in form who were a bit all over the place. But Onel Hernandez has picked up an ankle problem. Max Aaron's got clattered and picked up a knee problem. So those two could now be doubtful because Norwich head to Huddersfield in midweek. And Huddersfield is obviously David Wagner's reunion with his former club. So that will be a very interesting scenario as it plays out. So they're bottom 3, aren't they, Huddersfield? And those 3 are actually cut adrift. So to be frank, with the way the season's gone, if Norwich want to finish in the top 6, they have to win that game. That I think is that. Obviously, it doesn't decide it if they don't win on Tuesday. It doesn't get decided at that point. But quite clearly, you need to make up for your missed opportunities before, because those opportunities will run out at some point. So yeah, there's a couple of injuries. There was some issues really. I thought Adam Eder struggled. I thought that if just from 2 balls up the line to him where you want him to take the ball and maybe turn or run in. And was it, I think it was Luke O'Neill, wasn't it, on that side? Or was it Hume? I can't remember now. Oh, let me see. Maybe it'll tell me on here. This is handy having all this at my disposal. I'm loving it. Yeah, it was O'Neill, wasn't it? He was coming up against. I don't know if I pronounced that right. I got the better of him twice. And from that moment, Adam was pretty much out of the game, really. So it was no surprise he came off at half time, and Josh Sargent came on, showed some real effort and energy, which was great. Probably emphasized how little other energy there was. But of course, then that dissipated, and that was that. So it needed a bit more than that. But that was as much as you could probably expect for Josh, having been out for a few weeks. And I mean, you wouldn't, after that amount of time, you probably really want to start him at Huddersfield. David Wagner said that he had 30 minutes in him, really, and he played 45. So the fact that he played 45 and you're looking at it and think, well, maybe you could do with starting at Huddersfield. I don't know, but I could see it being a return to the Millwall lineup, perhaps. I didn't think Jakob Sørensen looked as useful at right back, but that was injury to Max that kind of prompted that, I suppose. And that seemed to stop a lot. Sunderland had already sort of patrolled the central spaces really well up until that point in the second half, but it also meant that Norwich were pretty ineffectual out on the right. I think, as we saw a few years ago, Jakob is a great left back if you've got that. If you've got that creativity around him and ahead of him, so that there's a lot of movement and players breaking lines. I think if you're relying on him to be the fullback that runs in behind and gets in behind and creates the moments himself from fullback, I don't think that's him. He's a slow and steady fullback. He's not your archetypal creative fullback. And actually, I thought Norwich kind of missed Max Aarons once he went off. They probably didn't miss him falling over. There is a replay, I think, giving the rounds of Matt. I don't understand. I can't. He must have felt something, but he does literally just fall over and grab the ball. I don't think it was the moment where we got injured. I think that was later when he received a tackle. This was just him falling over. And Norwich did a bit of that. And, it's kind of amusing, but also it's a bit like, what are you doing? And, they're the sort of things that when you then go down in the box means you don't always get your decision. So you kind of reap what you sow in that way. And yeah, just lots of ineffectual performances, really. I didn't think anyone really shone. Marquinhos was quiet. I thought Christos Jolis was, not sure. That one is a project, definitely, because I know he scored a great goal against Birmingham. But I look at him in general play, and I worry about where he is at the moment and what Norwich need. And I suppose all of this factors into these longer term issues that I have, which obviously, you don't sit there talking about them when they've won 3 on the trot and everyone's desperately, looking at what could, even I'm looking and going, well, how high could they finish? The 88-point train. But it doesn't take away from the reality. And the reality is the situation where, this team it's just missing bits. And if they don't go up this year, I can definitely see the benefit of like David Wagner having a proper time to put it all together and develop. But you also risk losing some of your better players. So say Teemu Pukki doesn't hang around, obviously. Say someone comes in for Gabi Sara in a top flight team somewhere in Europe. These are all decisions that become a lot harder when you're stuck in the Championship for a bit. So I think that's the sort of stuff people need to get their head around. It's not just a question of just the team rebuilding and then having a real tilt next year. Or next season. I don't think it's quite that straightforward. And I do still think that comes down to some of the recruitment having not really been good enough, and Norwich, in some respects, in terms of on the pitch, not making the most of their situation as it was developing. I know the training ground looks lovely and it does look brilliant now. And that might be enough for some, but I also think that you should still then be allowed to make the point about what is on the pitch as well, because it's not just about how good your training ground looks. So yeah, that's all that then, I think, in the terms of the table. Obviously, I've gone on a bit longer because I'm in unfamiliar circumstances. Just to repeat, I was at the game today. It was more that just getting away and doing it. And again, apologies for the lack of hot takes. My hot take is, it was crap. There you go. That's my hot take. So that's grand. Yeah, Norwich is 7th, 2 points off Millwall, who Norwich have beaten twice. Yeah, Millwall are above them. Luton are in 4th. They've also beaten Norwich twice. Or not also, they've beaten Norwich twice. Blackburn have beaten Norwich once and have yet to play Norwich at Ewood Park. Obviously, we then got games against Middlesbrough and Sheffield United. And that basically makes up for it. Also, West Brom creeping up the rails as well. And Norwich have got to go to West Brom. And in fairness, Sunderland are now only 3 points behind Norwich. So that's probably where we are with the playoff picture. Maybe Norwich aren't going to finish in the top 6. It's certainly beyond the realms of possibility. I don't think there's anything else I necessarily need to discuss from the game. I think I've covered everything off there. Referee Tim Robinson was fun. Oh, there was, of course, Tim Robinson, he, in fairness, he's a referee that I would say about 8 to 10 years ago, I was watching him officiate and it'd be like, oh God, there was I don't know if it was against Wolves or something. There was like a run of games where he would come up some really awful decisions and it'd be like, yay, Tim Robinson. You knew what you were going to get, came in. Then he had a run where he was kind of okay. And you're like, okay, he's sort of consistent now. It's not really impacting the game necessarily. It's great. And then you had today where he was, I don't know. I don't think he did anything that really, really, truly impacted the game. It was just a lot of bad decisions on both sides. So at least he was consistent. Some of it wasn't that bad. I mean, I don't know what you do with an altercation when O'Neill kisses Jakob Sørensen on the lips and then Jakob reacts by grabbing his neck. I don't know how you describe that altercation. I suppose they should both be booked in my mind. There was another one where there was a really bad, was it a bad challenge on Nunez? I can't remember, but it was something where you would get, but was kicking the ball away. I think it's Patrick Roberts kicked the ball away. So you should get booked for that. Then Nunez reacts badly and pushes Roberts. I think it was these two. So you're kind of like, well, you should both be booked, but no one was booked. And maybe that's okay officiating because, you know, that's all right as long as it's the same thing. I think it was just a bit erratic. And obviously the supporters weren't having, on either side, weren't really having him today. And then we had the one big incident, you would say, where there's two pieces of advantage played on Sarah. And it's almost like the second one, he's like, I don't think I can play two advantages. So he pulls the play back a second or two after Sarah has played a wonderful through ball for, I think, Josh Sargent, who is in. He's in on goal. But there is a defender who I think is close enough to at least impact Josh once he receives the ball. So I don't think it's a clear through on goal on his own scenario. It did look it from my view, I must admit, but on the replay, I thought that there was a defender just close enough who would have, I think, would have got close. Unless Josh took it the first time really quickly, which he might have been able to do, I thought the defender was close enough. He would have impacted. It's not to say Josh wouldn't have scored. I mean, I think Norwich could have still been playing now and wouldn't have scored, but that might have happened. I don't know. The one thing I do know is that he should not be blowing his whistle to pull back play at Norwich's disadvantage at that point. It's really, really bad officiating. It's, you know, it's done in, I'm sure it's done in the best possible circumstances, and he just didn't notice, and he probably realized as soon as he done it that, damn it, shouldn't have done that. But it was what it was. And in the same way that players get criticized for mistakes, and the way that Kenny McLean will put his arms up for the next 10 minutes to apologize for them, Tim Robinson, you know, that was a bad moment as a referee. So there we go. So I think that covers everything off. As I'm here live, I'm not going to do it any, I'll just go through some of your messages, because thanks for popping them in, because I don't get normally to do this, do I? Mel Marison. Oh, yeah. Well, is there any more? Who knows? Looks like it's going to be resolved. I don't need to talk about that, but hopefully the BBC get their house in order. Carl Layton says the ref was so bad today. Indeed. Neil Wall, too many mistakes, too many missed passes, too many poor decisions, too exposed, poor all over the pitch. Yep, very regressive. Alan Montgomery, the supposed leaders are always the ones most affected by conceding. McLean, Gibson and Hanley spread panic through the rest of the team instead of being calming influence when we go behind, which is a fair point. Certainly an interesting discussion. Jim Bob, Sunderland fans surprised how much let they have the ball. I don't think Norwich meant to or were inclined to give you the ball. I think there was they were loose with it. And as I said, I thought Sunderland dealt with the first half really well. And I thought they carried a really good threat on the counter. Something really interesting Angus Gunn said, which was that he said that they have found that the opposition they've been playing have not played how they had prepared to face them. So essentially, Norwich have prepared for what the opposition are going to do. And then they found that that's not what they've done. They've done something else. So like Sunderland were not playing out from the back at all today. They went direct and quickly and really vertical. Which I kind of find surprising. I asked David Wagner about that, and he kind of played it down and said that's why it's important that Norwich are independent in their own principles and what they do. And then, so you're doing that. And then obviously the opposition are doing what they're doing. And ultimately you have to figure it out as a team, what you're coming up against and how to beat them. But they shouldn't. I just found it a surprising comment because Norwich should be able to deal with that. It shouldn't be hard and fast what they're coming up against. And that as an observation is interesting because I don't think I've ever heard that before. Because of course teams are going to, I don't know what other games they would have analysed, but I would imagine Sunderland So, I mean, certainly they're not going to play against Norwich like they would against Stoke at home, for example. So if we look at their recent games, they played Stoke at home, Coventry away. They're probably not going to play Coventry the same way as Norwich, although there's possibly similarities. Rotherham away, Bristol City at home, QPR away, Reading at home. That's Sunderland's run. I mean, maybe Fulham at home, possibly. But so and that's just Sunderland, obviously. But just found that interesting. It might be something I'll keep an eye on. But there we go. But as I said, I thought Sunderland deserved a great credit for how they played today. And Tony Mowbray, I think, is brilliant. I just think he speaks so well. He spoke very well after the game today. Really insightful. He seemed to be really enjoying the chat, and I was really enjoying listening to him, which doesn't happen very often in press conferences. But I found that as well. I found that when he was at Blackburn as well, really, really interesting to listen to the point where he actually mentioned he was at Ipswich, which I completely forgot. I remember it well. I'd completely forgot he was an Ipswich player for a fair amount of time as well, also when they were quite good, or at least better than Norwich. So yeah, it was just interesting. Fair play to Tony, because Sunderland are not, Sunderland are trying to compete on their return to the Championship. They're a massive club, but he's doing a good job in what was quite a difficult circumstance. And even now, still find it surprising Alec Neil left. There we go. What do I know? Yes, I think we're all done there. 80 Let's have a look at some other ones. Gibson, Hanley, can make too many posters. Have I done? Don't know if I've done that one, but there we go. Andre J, sorry to say, Pookie is a spent force. Now, you see, I don't agree. I don't think Teemu Pukki is a spent force. I think the problem we've got with Teemu is you've got a really good player who probably still deep down thought he would get a move away at the end of last season, that, that cycle was done. Obviously, contractually, he's still here, but just like, I don't think another Championship promotion push, especially when it's been nowhere near. Like, you think about you, all the supporters. Is anyone as excited about this season as the last two Championship seasons? No, it's been rubbish compared to those two. The football's been average. We're quite excited because the new head coach is a bit more engaging in terms of, I'm talking on behalf of the fan base here. When it's a bit more exciting, seeing some big goals, but it's not on a patch on the other two seasons. And I just think Teemu probably feels exactly the same, and he knows deep down. I know no one wants to say it right now, but I would be amazed if he's still a Norwich player next season. I just do not see it. I think it depends probably on what offers he's got, but I think he'll want to do something else. So I don't think he's a spent force at all. I thought he was as problematic for Sunderland as anyone was in the first half. I just think he's probably misses Emmy, who could pick him out to perfect degree. And it's just not as good as it was. Just be a human in this place. Just be a human in this moment and look at it. Obviously, he'll be hugely grateful. He's getting paid a lot of money. There's a lot there, lots of professional stuff that he's doing, and he is doing those things. But I think it's forgivable to think that you can see a player who's just in a scenario where it's not as good as it was, and you kind of know it will probably come to an end. And I think he's done more than enough. It's, the issues around Norwich City are about what's happened around him. They are in no way about Teemu Pukki. And ultimately, he will decide where his future is. And I think that will be that, really. So I don't think it's about Teemu himself, personally. But obviously, he's a bit older. Maybe he's lost the other pace as well. Who knows? Simon Duarte says, sadly missed the game today. I mean, I wouldn't be. I think you're fine. You probably had a lovely day. It depends where you took your mother out. I hope it was lovely. Yes, home form has been awful. You do have to prepare for more than one scenario, and I think they would do that. But yeah, is as it was. Right, John, thank you for pressing the like and subscription buttons. I mean, I never ask for that, so thank you. I appreciate it. Maybe I should, maybe in future I will do more of these than actually being, doing live ones at the game. Maybe it's the future. Who knows what the future is? Right. Jake Tidy, you've probably summed it up there. You know your recruitment has messed up over the last 2 years when you were saying we still miss Buendia or Ollie Skip. Yes, indeed. On that note, so yes, it finished 1-0. Norwich lost. Let's see what we get at Huddersfield. I look forward to going to Huddersfield. I think I'm going to be there. It's a long week, and I don't think everyone that I work with is that fussed if I go, but I think I should go. Today was not a big motivator to make me want to go, but all being well, and I think it'll be quite an interesting scenario and situation with David Wagner returning to Huddersfield. I think that might be quite poignant. I do fear the game because Norwich have to win, but maybe that's just me. We shall see. In the meantime, have a lovely time with whatever you're doing. The Athletic is obviously somewhere with writing, and I will have written stuff there. Angus Gunn's going to play for Scotland. He hopes. He's now Scottish. That's official. So you can read about that on The Athletic. And that will be interesting if he gets called up for March. I'm assuming he will. Otherwise, why change your allegiances? So that's one thing. I think I'm hosting the Tifo podcast tomorrow. So all of those people who love Joe Devine will be able to be disappointed in my voice. I will also be hosting the On the Ball podcast in the evening once I'm back. So loads of exciting things will be live then on Monday night. Keep an eye out for that. In the meantime, take care of yourselves, have fun, do something else fun on what is left of your Sunday evening, which is not a lot. And I will see you very soon. It's very unusual. I'm so much more used to doing this at the game. This was an unnatural situation. I'm not sure I was a fan. Anyway, I can do the sign off. I've got a proper mic as well, so you can hear me properly. In the meantime, look after yourselves, each other, and I will see you at the latest Norwich City action on Wednesday. And of course, for the On the Ball podcast, right here tomorrow night, when we have Steve Saunders, Daniel Brigham, and Maddie Mackenzie. Good evening to you all, and don't have nightmares.